Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be building a project using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This project is going to be a Mario-inspired game to practice accessing a random element from an array. The game is going to work as follows. I'm going to click on this Mario item block, an animation is going to run, and then we're going to get a random Mario character. This time we got Donkey Kong. We'll try it one more time. Animation is going to run again. This time we get Bowser. So that's what the finished project is going to look like. And in the description of this video, you'll find a link to this project's GitHub repo. If you'd like, you can clone that repo down, CD into the starter folder, so you can code along with me. So here I'll show the starter code. HTML, very basic. We have a div with the class of container, and inside of the div we have an H2 for the heading or for that Mario character title. We have an image element for the block, that item block with the question mark on it, and then we have an H4. Styling, pretty simple styling. Really the only goal of this styling is to push everything to the middle of the page. The only styling I'm going to be going over is going to be that animation, which I'll do in a second here. And then for the JavaScript, for the starter code, I just built this array of objects that represents those Mario characters. So we have the name of a character such as Mario, and then we have a link to the image, and you can find those images in that starter code I provided, but the images are all in here, just in this images folder. Okay, so as I mentioned, the CSS we're going to cover here is going to be the animation. So I'll go to Style CSS, and we're going to start to build our what are called keyframes, which is the way in CSS we can create an animation. So we're going to call this keyframe smash, and again, this is going to represent that what I showed in the introduction there, the block doing that spin and then eventually fading into the image of Yoshi or Donkey Kong or whoever. So the first keyframe we're going to specify is going to be 75% of the way through the animation. We're going to go transform, rotate 360 degrees, and opacity is going to be 0. So what that's going to do is transform, rotate 360. That's going to be the visual representation of that is going to be that block rotating the full 360 degrees. And the opacity 0 is going to mean that it's going to go from completely visible to completely invisible by the time that 75% is done. So just this, what we've specified in our keyframes of Smash, this will provide most of the effect on its own. But we're going to add one more step, and this step is to account for the image that we want generated, like we showed in that demonstration, of the character like Yoshi fading into the image. So this is going to be 100% of the way through the animation. We're going to go transform, rotate 360 degrees. This is just going to keep everything the way it is, so it doesn't do anything that we're not expecting. But now we're going to go opacity 1, and that's going to be the effect of that new image fading into the screen, so it's just not so harsh. Okay, so now that we have our Smash keyframe defined, we're going to tell which part of our CSS we'd like to apply this Smash keyframe to, and that's going to be our image, so that block with the question mark, and we're going to give it the animation shorthand, and we're going to go the name Smash. And the duration we want this to take is 4 seconds. And we're going to give one more property here, which is going to be animation iteration count. And we're just going to go 1 because we want that animation to run just one time. As you can see, it actually ran there once for us. Okay, now that we have our CSS finished for this project, you'll notice that if I was to refresh our application, this animation is going to run one time regardless of whether we click on the block or not, and that's not what we want. So we're going to fix that right now in our JavaScript. So let's go to our JavaScript. All we have again so far is just this array of objects called characters, and what we're going to do here is declare a couple of variables, and we're going to use one of those variables in order to stop that animation from its default behavior from being running. We're going to make that animation initially pause on the initial load of our page. So we're going to go const h4 document query selector h4. So that's going to be in reference to this click block to smash smaller heading here. And then const img document query selector image. That's going to be in reference to that block. And then here's where we're going to tell the block to not run the animation on page load. img.style.animationPlayState, and we're going to set that equal to paused. So now you'll notice if I refresh this page again, we're not getting any animation, which is what we want. So we want the block to initiate that animation when we click it. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to access this image variable again, and just going to go image.onClick and set this equal to a function. This function doesn't need to take any parameters, but the first thing we're going to do when this image is clicked is now we're going to do the opposite of what we did on a few lines above. We're going to go image.style.animationPlayState, set that to running. So now if we go and we load our page, we refresh, it doesn't run, which is what we want. We told it to do that on line 30 here, but now we click it and the animation runs. So that's great, we're making progress. So now what we want to have happen is after this animation runs, we want to be able to access one of these objects in our characters array, and we want to do that at random. So for example, we want the name to be Mario and that corresponding image to be the Mario image, or if it's randomly lands on Donkey Kong, we want the name to be Donkey Kong and the image to be Donkey Kong. So we're going to do that using the math object. So using that math object, we're going to create a variable here, a local variable, to create a random index which we can use to iterate through our characters array. So we're going to go const random index equals math.floor, here's that math object, times math.random, and we're going to invoke it with the parentheses, times characters dot length. We could use the number 6 here, but just in case we want to end up adding additional objects to this characters array, characters.length will ensure this is always the number we want it to be. So this random index variable is going to be useful to us because now we're going to have access to a random integer, a random whole integer between 0 and 5. And we can demonstrate this by if we console.log random index, and then we go into our developer tools here in our console, and then we're going to hit we're going to click on the block actually. Perfect, number 4. And if we click on the block again, number 1, 0, 4, 1, 2, you're seeing we're getting a random number between 0 and 5. So now on our next line of code, we're going to get rid of this console log, and we're going to get access to the individual properties of these objects. This random index is great because it's iterating through that array, getting a random index. But now we need a way to specify each specific property of these objects. So we're going to use array or object destructuring to go name, character, image, which are the names of these two variables that we specified in our characters array, name, character, image. And then we're going to make that equal to characters, our characters array, at random index. So now remember when we first started this video, we want the image to appear after the item block has successfully completed its rotation. And the way we're going to do that is using something in JavaScript known as setTimeout. So setTimeout takes 2 parameters. The first is a function, which we're going to define in a second here. And the second is going to be the amount of time we want to wait before we run whatever code is specified inside of the body of this setTimeout function. So inside of our setTimeout function body, we're going to run the following code. Image, getting access to that variable again that defines the block. And then we're going to use the method setAttribute. The first parameter here, source, which is going to, now we're going to look for the path to change the image. And we're going to use that variable character image, which we got from our destructuring here. This character image is going to be in reference to the path of one of these images. So the Bowser image, the Peach image, or whichever image is generated excuse me, based on our random index variable here. So still inside of the body of our setTimeout function, we're going to get access to our smaller heading here at the bottom of our page, h4.innerText, setting that equal to name, which is again a variable that we got from our out of our object with our object destructuring line right here. And this name is going to be whatever corresponds to this image. So if we get the image ends up being Bowser, the name is going to just show up as Bowser, which is what we want. And so now with just this image.onClick, this function body that we have here, plus that animation that we defined in style CSS, we're done. We have everything that we need to get our app to function just like it did at the beginning of the video when I showed the finished product. So we'll go over to our block here, click on the block, let's run the animation, and good, Yoshi shows up. Great. We'll try it one more time, clicking on the block, Mario shows up. We'll do one more just for good measure. Let's see what we're going to get here. We get Peach. So if you were really paying attention, one thing you might be wondering is, why did we make our keyframe smash animation to be 4 seconds? That's because the first 75% of this keyframe represents that question block spinning, and then the last 25%, which equals 1 second, this represents the new image, so the picture of Yoshi or whoever, fading into the page. And this just creates a little bit better of a user experience so that when the block is done its animation, it doesn't just immediately go bam with Mario or whoever. So that's it for the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.